This is a production of WGBH2 Boston.
Tonight on Greater Boston, two former U.S. Senate leaders from opposite sides of the aisle have come together in the hopes of returning bipartisanship to our dysfunctional Congress. Former Majority Leaders Tom Daschle and Trent Lott have written a new book, Crisis Point. They'll join me. Then our series on the real issues of election 2016 continues. Adam Riley takes a look at where the presidential candidates stand on trying to balance our security with our civil rights. Plus, we'll hear from Chris Dempsey, the founder of No Boston Olympics, about why he's now in demand in cities all over the world. And finally, Emily Rooney's not-so-fun look back at last January and our winter naivete. My first two guests tonight have nearly 60 years of Senate service between them, from the mid-'80s through the mid-aughts. Both former Senate Majority Leaders, Democrat Tom Daschle, Republican Trent Lott, are no strangers to the tough talk and partisan rhetoric of Capitol Hill. But these days, the two believe that has become a national crisis. Hence the title of the great new book, Crisis Point, Why We Must and How We Can Overcome Our Broken Politics in Washington and Across America. But before I introduce the pair of political peacekeepers, let's call them, I don't want you to think it's always been a bipartisan love fest.
As a husband and a father, I am offended by the president's behavior and by the tragic example that he has set for the young people of this country.
Unfortunately, last spring, Republicans chose exactly the wrong solution. They made a huge tax cut their number one priority ahead of everything else and discarded the framework of fiscal responsibility.
That's when they were young and irresponsible. Now they're with me tonight, former Senators Trent Lott and Tom Daschle. Gentlemen, it's really good to see you. Thank you.
Look at all that dark hair, Jim.
What's that?
What happened to all that dark hair?
So, 60 years between you. Is this the worst in your years in politics, the dysfunction? 15% approval in Congress?
It is. It is. You have to go back to perhaps the Civil War to find a time 150 years ago when it was this bad. And it really pains us to say that. We don't want it to be that. There are things that have caused it. We think that it's been gradual. There's not been one thing that triggered it, but things are really bad, and we've got to fix it.
I want to get to the causes in just a second, Senator Lott, but are you guys blameless? I mean, you did the impeachment thing. You blocked Bush nominations when a lot of people said you got to let the president have it. Were you at least part of the problem in your time? I know you respected each other. I know you talked to each other. Were you or no?
We don't profess purity. We had our philosophical and political disagreements, and sometimes we overplayed our hand. But we also, and we went through a lot of difficult things, some of which were beyond our control, like 9/11 and the anthrax attack and the 50-50 Senate. But in spite of our mistakes, which we made, and the difficult times that we dealt with, those things, we got results. We kept focusing on, okay, how can we move this bill or that bill, whether it was a budget, a defense issue, or even basic things like safe drinking water.
Before we talk about the problem and solutions, speaking of impeachment, briefly tell what happened, a phone call you got just a couple days after you voted to impeach your president.
Well, we had to do, and first of all, we didn't create that. He was impeached by the House. We had to act on that.
Understood.
We had a constitutional responsibility. And we tried very hard. And Tom, and this is where we did work together. I called Tom the next day after the House vote and said, Tom, I'm not happy this is in our lap, but it's here. Now, how can we get this done responsibly in a way that people will feel good about it, and then we can go on and do our work after that? So we did it, and we had the vote on Friday, and I voted for 2 articles of impeachment. The following Thursday, of course, that failed, but the following Thursday I get a call from President Clinton, and he wanted to talk about a piece of legislation. I don't even remember what it was, but he didn't mention
Never mentioned
it. And we went forward.
Okay, let's get to current events. Let's go down a list of at least a few of the things you guys mentioned in your book. Let's start with airplanes, for example. What do you mean by airplanes, Senator Daschle?
Well, Jim, the airplane has really created a new dynamic in Washington. It's changed the social life. It's changed the way the members of Congress interact with one another. Now they leave on Thursday, they come back on Tuesday, they try to run the country on Wednesday. And that's not much of an exaggeration. Therefore, they don't get to know each other. They don't get to spend the time in the committees to work on this stuff. They don't get a chance to deal and to work through all of the challenges we face from a legislative perspective.
How do you fix that?
Well, I think what we've got to do is create 5-day work weeks again to say, look, the airplane is always going to be there, but you can only use it on Saturdays and not on Thursdays. You've got to spend the whole week, Monday through Friday, legislating.
Couldn't
3 weeks
Harry
out of
Reid
every
have
month.
done that when he was majority leader, or Mitch McConnell now? Just say you work Monday to Friday, you go home Friday at 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
Could they
and
do that?
Paul Ryan could do it, and I think he will, and I'm pushing that, the new Speaker of the House of Representatives. It was just about maybe 4 years ago when they changed that in the House. Eric Cantor was the majority leader at the time, and get this, they went to 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. And the Senate was doing, I guess, 3 weeks on and 1 week off, but they were only working, like 2 days. You can't do that. And the job is in Washington. Being a legislator is not something you can just do on the side. You got to work at it.
But if they were just going home, it'd be one thing. What they're doing more and more is raising money. They're all over the country raising money, going to fundraisers, dialing for dollars. Money is driving a big part of the schedule.
Well, that's number two, Amelia. So what do you do to fix that? There's a First Amendment. We know where the Supreme Court is on those. How do you fix the money problem?
Well, I think we've got to find ways to incent, to encourage. We want to see if we can find constitutional ways to limit the amount of time
Like
on
what?
campaigns.
Like what?
Well, how about not raising money while you legislate? That's actually established in a lot of states today. You can't fundraise and legislate in the same time.
And you think the Supreme Court would buy that?
Well, they haven't denied it in the states. It's going on in the states as we speak.
You think money's a problem too, but when you watch television a couple nights ago and you hear that Shelley Adelson, a Dorchester kid from Boston, now owning the Sands and more, wants to figure out who to give 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars, and because of Citizens United, he can. You think they were on firm ground with Citizens United, don't you? How do you ever fix the money mess without fixing that?
Well, look, there's some people who say, okay, we need to find a way to limit the money, and how you do that without limiting speech under the Supreme Court decision. Basically, I agree with the decision, but there are some things I don't like. I'm very concerned about the super PACs, the amount of money they have, and who gives to those super PACs, and the fact, by the way, they get involved in candidates' campaigns, sometimes to their own candidates' dismay and dislike. So one of the things that we suggest, it's no use arguing about what we can't do. Constitutional problem is the real one. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to do it, but the process is long and difficult. So what is another way to do this thing? We recommend things like, how about a single primary day to cut down on this thing we're going through right now where it goes on and on and on, beginning with Iowa and winding up with who knows where. Michigan.
But doesn't that benefit the Trumps of the world and the Hillary Clinton? Hillary Clinton's your candidate. I know you're a John Kasich supporter.
Yeah.
Doesn't it support the people who are the richest to be able to compete everywhere on day one?
I really don't think so. I think it would help cut down on the overall amount of money that's involved. I think it would help people's attention focused. I think it would cut down on the negativity.
There's a voter fatigue that has set in, and we've got to deal with the voter fatigue. There are downsides to a lot of the solutions we argue for, but we've got to recognize something has to be done to deal with the very low participation
How about
rate we get in
weekends?
primaries.
How about a weekend vote
Weekends,
like some other
early
countries?
voting, greater
Yes, you
opportunities.
know?
Oh, no. I'm for Saturday voting. Why are we voting on Tuesday?
Why are we voting on Tuesday?
I'm the son of a blue-collar shipyard worker, union member, pipe fitter. And he went in that shipyard early, and he got off late, and he was dirty. He'd been inhaling asbestos. And then he had to go home and clean up and get to the polls and vote before they closed, which in those days I think was like 6 o'clock. Why don't we vote on Saturday?
Gentlemen, you identified problems, I think, quite well in your book. Your solution is reform. The solution of a huge swath of the American people is Donald Trump. Why are they wrong and you're right? Why isn't a Trump? I don't just mean Trump, I mean the generic Trump. Why isn't Trump the answer?
Well, first of all, I just don't buy the outsider argument. Do I like the idea of businessmen and women being involved? Yeah, I do. I'm a lawyer, but I think, it'd be good if we had more non-lawyers in the Congress. I have a problem with people coming in and have not actually done the job, don't understand the players, don't know the players. Okay, he's been a great international businessman. But I want somebody like Kasich that has actually balanced a budget for the federal government.
But if it wasn't Kasich, if Trump got the nomination, would you vote for him?
Depending on who was against in the primary or in the general, probably I would.
Jim, I think the thing
certainly
that we both
against
feel strongly
Bernie Sanders
about,
or Hillary.
The thing we think strongly about is experience does count. Would you do a heart transplant with a guy who's never had a heart transplant? If he said, "Look, I've never done this before, but I think I can transplant your heart or your lungs," Well, running the country is even more complicated than a heart transplant. And yet we're saying, let's give somebody who's never had a minute of experience come in and run the country and maybe even threaten the world as we know it today.
But gentlemen, well,
with his
I
finger
hope
on the
most
button.
people would agree on the experience thing, but you believe we should be more bipartisan. There's a reward for partisanship. Right behind Donald Trump in your primary is Ted Cruz, the most partisan Republican in Congress. How do you explain that?
I was in the House of Representatives for 16 years. I was the Republican whip for 8 of those, working with the Reagan administration. Then I moved over to the Senate, and I was always in the minority in the House. So I got up every morning trying to think, how can I beat the Democrats today? I came to the Senate as a partisan warrior. Within 6 months, I said, you know what? This is not going real good. I'm making people mad. I'm not getting anything done. I'm concerned that I don't really know the rules. I got to change my conduct. I spent 6 months going around and talking to senators of both parties, saying, tell me how I can do a good job for my constituents and for my country as a senator. I changed my conduct, and 6.5 years later, I was a majority leader.
But we've created an environment where that partisanship is rewarded, where the more outrageous you are, the more attention you get. I'm not saying your program, but a lot of media rewards the sensationalism, the hyperbolic rhetoric, the partisan confrontational tone, the lack of civility. That's rewarded in part in the media, and I think that's part of the problem as well.
Believe it or not, I agree with you. Only have 30 seconds left. You're going to be at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute tonight.
Right.
Was Kennedy as good at this bipartisanship, quickly, both of you, as legend suggests?
Emphatically, yes. He was one of the most partisan, but also one of the best wheelers and dealers, the best compromisers, one of the best movers of legislation history has known.
I actually was friends with him. We worked together on occasion. One time I told a civic club in my home state that, and after it was over, an old guy came up from the back and he said, you did a good job at that part about Kennedy. Don't say that no more.
Senator Daschle, thank you so much. Senator Lott, your book is great. I hope people take the time to read it. The book, again, is called Crisis Point, Why We Must and How We Can Overcome Our Broken Politics in Washington and across America. We just touched on a few. Read the book for yourself. Later, the man behind No Boston Olympics, Chris Dempsey, has taken his talents to Hamburg and now to Rome. We'll hear from him ahead. And Emily Rooney has a blast from the past, which we're all hoping we won't see anytime soon. But first, 11 days to go until the Iowa caucuses, or caucus, and 19 till the first in the nation primary. We'll be in New Hampshire on TV and radio that day and the days leading up to it. And ahead of the first big vote, we're continuing our series on the real issues of election 2016. Tonight, we're looking at where the presidential candidates stand on the balancing act between keeping us safe while doing the same for our personal liberties. Adam Riley reports.
2 weeks after the lethal attacks in San Bernardino, the Republican candidates had their 5th debate. And the USA Freedom Act, which limits the government's ability to monitor phone use, got a lot of attention. Marco Rubio decried it.
And the terrorist that attacked us in San Bernardino was an American citizen, born and raised in this country. And I bet you we wish we would have had access to 5 years of his record so we could see who he was working with.
So did Chris Christie.
What we need to do, Wolf, is restore those tools that have been taken away by the president and others.
But Ted Cruz, who voted for the Freedom Act, said the naysayers have it wrong.
The prior program only covered a relatively narrow slice of phone calls. When you had a terrorist, you could only search a relatively narrow slice of numbers. Now we have cell phones. Now we have internet phones.
It's a technical dispute that raises a much bigger question. When it comes to keeping Americans safe, just how far should the government be allowed to go? In the Republican field, the answers vary widely.
Are you open to closing parts of the internet?
I would certainly be open to closing areas where we are at war with somebody. If you're going to close the internet, realize, America, what that entails. That entails getting rid of the First Amendment, okay? It's no small feat.
There are also big differences among the Democrats, with Bernie Sanders sounding like a passionate civil libertarian.
Yes, we have to defend ourselves against terrorism, but there are ways to do that without impinging on our constitutional rights.
And Hillary Clinton sounding more measured.
We always have to keep the balance of civil liberties, privacy, and security. It's not easy in a democracy.
To be clear, the civil liberties debate is also about whether companies like Apple should be able to provide airtight encryption.
We need to be able to penetrate these people. Collaborative leadership here with Silicon Valley.
And whether the government should monitor American Muslims.
I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay? If that's okay.
Donald Trump also said this: certain things will be done that we never thought would happen in this country. We're going to have to do certain things that were frankly unthinkable a year ago. Judging from the polls, plenty of Republicans feel the same way.
Adam Riley joins me now. Hey, Adam.
Hey.
You up for a little quiz, a little fun?
Sure. Yeah,
what did
yeah.
Benjamin Franklin purportedly say about the very same subject? Go ahead.
You mean the thing that's been paraphrased throughout the
Yes,
campaign? That
I have
can't
it here
remember right now?
from memory.
All right. You can have a little security, you can have a little liberty, but you can't have both at the same time?
Close enough.
Yeah.
Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety.
That's
B+.
much better. That's
Close
much
enough.
better. Right.
On a related theme, quickly if you can, on torture, are there any surprises or everybody's true to form?
Something that I just learned today, embarrassed to admit this, Ted Cruz is actually kind of dovish when it comes to torture.
I didn't know that either.
Donald Trump has said, I'd love to bring it back. We should bring it back. And even if it doesn't work, they deserve it anyway. Chris Christie sort of swagger saying, we should bring back waterboarding specifically. That's what Trump was talking about, too. Ted Cruz voted for that amendment, the Feinstein-McCain amendment back in June, that made a torture ban federal law. He has said that his father was tortured as a rebel in Castro's Cuba, and he has said that torture is something that the United States should not do. Now, he leaves himself a little wiggle room. He doesn't say what torture is. He just says we shouldn't do it. But compared to the rest of the field, he's on the left with people like Rand Paul and Lindsey Graham used to be, but now he's gone.
This torture issue, very quickly, is often, where it is in the campaign, is a function of what's happening in the world.
Yep.
Sort of like terrorism we talked the other day.
Right.
They're not talking, this is not really a current topic in this campaign.
No, it hasn't come up a lot. It hasn't come up a lot. But on the other hand, if we get a new event that occurs, say someone from Guantanamo pops off and hurts a bunch of people here or abroad, then we'll probably hear about it again. But yeah, very contextual.
Adam, thank you so
Thanks.
much. Another interesting. You'll do it again Tuesday.
Well, let's do it again.
And then Thursday.
That sounds perfect.
Adam, he did pretty well in the quiz. Next up, a guy who's in demand across the globe. After leading the No Boston Olympics effort, a key player in keeping our city games-free in 2024. On the heels of Boston, Chris Dempsey's group stepped up to help out in Toronto, where they ultimately decided not to apply for the Games. Then it was off to Hamburg, Germany, to talk with Olympic opposition leaders there. The public ultimately voted no. And now the world tour continues, with No Boston Olympics lending their expertise to Rome. Chris Dempsey was also recently named the Globe's co-Bostonian of the Year for 2015, along with the chief proponent of the Olympics, John Fish. And he joined me to talk about his latest efforts. And now joining me is the globe-trotting Chris Dempsey. Chris, it's great to see you.
Hey, Jim.
My understanding is when you've done these travels, that thing in Toronto and then in Budapest and then in Rome, you're not urging people to reject the Olympics. You're trying to help the no side have a voice in the debate. Is that a fair?
That's right. It's not for us to say whether the people of Rome should want the Olympics or not. What we're saying is it's important to have a discussion. What we saw here in Boston is that the more people learned about the bid, the less they liked it, because they learned that the IOC has really outrageous demands for host cities, and you want to advance that conversation in these other cities so that they know what they're signing up for.
I read you say, I want to share some of the lessons learned. What are the key 2 or 3 lessons that you did learn that you think are transferable to other potential, not potential, but bidding cities?
Sure. So one lesson is that this stuff is really expensive. The average bid is between $10 and $20 billion, and Boston 2024 was going to be just like that. The second is that these bids don't really create economic opportunity. When economists have looked at the games, they don't see that cities are better off after they hosted the games than they were before. But I think most importantly, what we learned is that the system is set up to really help the IOC. The IOC is going to make off very well with this deal, but the host city is not. It's just the structure that they have in place. And until the IOC changes that, they're going to see more and more cities drop out.
So wait, so I hear you do this list a minute after you say to me, we're not telling people to vote no. Okay, there's no economic benefit. You're worse off after than you were before, and it's really expensive. Yeah. So it sounds like, if you read between the lines, I'm putting words in your mouth. Unless you're a city like L.A. that's got pre-existing facilities, or like Sochi, where you have Vladimir Putin as your boss, yep, you would say vote no, would you not?
I think it's worth a very hard look at these games and whether they make sense. If you have all the infrastructure in place truly, then maybe it makes some sense, but otherwise you're better off saying no.
So what's the difference between a city that embraces the Olympics, like London, for example? Boris Johnson, the mayor, was with us when he was trying to rally the troops here after London had their Olympics in 2012, LA, and one that rejects it. What's the difference?
Well, here's one difference. In London, the games were guaranteed at the national level. And so when they went $10 billion over budget, everyone in the UK paid a little bit to cover that overrun. Here in Massachusetts, it was going to be the city and the state that were going to have to pay for those overruns. And so the cost per citizen was going to be much, much higher.
How about L.A.?
Well, L.A. had this great experience in 1984, but what they don't remember necessarily is that they were the only bidder for the games, and so they were able to dictate the terms to the IOC and essentially get rid of all the IOC's demands. That's not going to be the case this time around, and we think that they might have some surprises in store.
Yeah, I realized I said a minute ago Budapest was one of the. It was Hamburg, where you obviously
Hamburg
went,
is where
that voted no. So left on the table is Paris, Budapest, L.A. and Rome. So, and Rome is, I was going to say one of your clients, one of the places with whom you're consulting. Have you heard anything from any of these other cities? They interested in talking to you or no?
You know, we haven't heard much from those other cities, but there's still time. The IOC doesn't make its decision until September of 2017, so we're still more than a year and a half away from that ultimate decision. And I think that you will see more conversation and debate in these cities as it goes forward.
You know, I mentioned a minute ago that you were on the cover of the Globe magazine as Bostonians of the Year. You and the man who started this Boston 2024 thing, John Fish. Obviously, he subsequently gave way, and Steve Pagliuca of Celtics fame was in charge, and Rich Davey was his, I guess, the CEO or executive director, whatever it is. We heard all along during this debate from the proponents, win or lose the bid, whether it happens or not, the process alone is going to lead to so many good things, like it allegedly did in New York City, even though I know you didn't get along very well in that debate with the guy from New York. Other than a Saturday op-ed that Davey and Pagliuca in the Globe wrote, have we heard a peep from the proponents about how they're going to continue that process that would have happened with or without the games, or no?
We haven't heard much. Now, I will say that I have a lot of respect for all three of those people you just named.
So do I, by the way.
And they're committed citizens, and I think we will see more from them in the future.
Why do you think that?
You know, I think they're not eager to talk about this because it wasn't a great experience. You know, when it came out of the box in January of 2015, you know, I think it caught them by surprise that the public was really not on board and that they needed to do more convincing. And they never made a compelling case. And so I think they want to move on. And that's their prerogative, but I do think that they are committed people, and we're going to see more of them in the future.
So getting back to the primary theme again, your belief is that you have the ability to help people who want to say no to something that has negatives for their community as well as political, and let the voters or the people decide.
Yep.
Were the same rules apply to General Electric? There are a number of people who are concerned. Well, there are a lot of people who are thrilled about the jobs and the message it sends. The flip side is they don't pay federal taxes very much. They don't pay state taxes very much. They're getting at least $125 million from the city and the state, maybe another $100 million for that bridge. Would the same rules apply?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we need to see both sides of the ledger there. There are clearly some benefits to having GE in town, and it's an exciting moment for the city to have a big corporation sort of moving in and planting its flag here in Massachusetts. But we don't yet know the full story of sort of what promises were made. It's unfortunate that that was done behind closed doors, actually kind of similar to the Olympic process. But I will say that there is no sort of unlimited risk associated with GE in the way there was with the Olympics. Fundamentally, the IOC was looking for that blank check. And GE, they're looking for benefits as any company would moving here, but it's not sort of an unlimited liability.
So when hashtag #MakeGEPay calls you on the phone and says, I want to meet, do you say yes?
We say yes to anyone that wants to talk. I mean, look,
including me.
Absolutely. It's part of the conversation.
Chris, it's great to see you. Thanks so
Jim.
much. We recorded that conversation with Chris last night, and shortly after, the full agreement between the state, city, and GE was made public. In response to that, Chris sent us a statement that says, quote, while it's still too early to know if this deal will turn out to be a good one for Massachusetts taxpayers, no matter how it shakes out, it's a much better deal than what Boston 2024 and the IOC were offering. Time now for tomorrow's Globe Tonight. Your first look at Friday morning's Boston Globe with city editor Stephen Smith. Hello there, Steve. What's your page one story?
Good evening, Jim.
Hey.
Could it be? Could the beloved Citgo sign that has illuminated Kenmore Square for decades go dark? That, at least in theory, is a possibility now that Boston University has retained a real estate broker to look for the potential of selling a clutch of buildings the university owns on the north side of Kenmore Square. One of those buildings, it's the one that contains the Barnes & Noble campus bookstore. It's that building on which the Citgo sign rests. Now, despite its iconic status, the sign actually has no protection as a historic landmark, so that technically with any sale of the building, the sign would not necessarily come with the building. Right now, a billboard company leases that space from the university.
Why is BU selling this thing to begin with, do you know?
So the university and the city have long regarded Kenmore Square this sort of quilt of old and new, and there's a desire to give the university a fresher entry point, and so the city is hoping the sale will do that, and also, of course, bring millions of dollars to the school.
I'll be picketing if they try to take down that sign. Steve, good to see you. So I've decided to cede my commentary time tonight to a very worthy cause. A reminder that we should all learn from the errors of the past. Remember this time last year? We were feeling pretty smug, no real snow accumulation. Looked like the coast was clear until Snowmageddon. 95 inches from January 24th to February 22nd. So, as we enter late January with snow in the forecast, WGBH special correspondent Emily Rooney has this reminder of why we shouldn't laugh at those making an extra grocery store run tonight.
The blowing and blustery whiteouts came with cute names like Juno, Marcus, Neptune, and Octavia. But frankly, we couldn't tell them apart. It was just more piles, more shovelfuls, more aggravation.
When it snows like this, where are you going to put the snow?
Not to mention, no way to get to work.
They kicked us all off of it and then made us wait for a bus that was jammed full.
A combination of ancient equipment and inadequate track plows forced the MBTA to shut down altogether and then run on a limited schedule. Also groaning to a halt, Boston schools shut for 8 days as buses sat idle like so much baked Alaska. Meanwhile, people tried to do the right thing.
Doing just like 5 minutes of shoveling helps everyone.
Oh yeah, the cars. Those parking bans didn't apply to crowded neighborhood streets, so people left their cars snuggled into their own private igloos for weeks at a time. What's your plan of attack here?
Hopefully cutting across here, and if I can get some of it over there just to make a pathway.
Oh, and let's not forget the Space Saver ritual. You dig it, you own it. Last year, the South End tried to ban the practice, but remember this friendly little note to a neighbor that begins, "You are an idiot." Then there were the ice dams. Roofers were in such high demand they weren't answering their phones. Roofs collapsed. Water came in attics. Everything was frozen solid. So as our first snowstorm looms, no matter how wimpy, don't feel guilty about buying extra toilet paper.
It's like a horror movie. So what do you think? Has the pain of last winter worn off? Email us, tweet us, share your thoughts. That's it for tonight. Please come back tomorrow for Beat the Press. Emily Rooney and her panel will debate whether the media should report bomb scares at schools, plus those age-old Nielsen ratings coming into the 21st century. That and more tomorrow at 7. I'll be back Monday. One more thing before we go. Have you seen this headline from Time Magazine that 1 in 10 recent college grads think Judge Judy is a Supreme Court justice? Worse yet, I hear 3 in 10 actually think Clarence Thomas is a Supreme Court justice too. Next month will mark 10 years since he asked the question in oral argument, if you're keeping track, which I am.